Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. My name is Kafoko Zachariah, and I'm the director for One Day Africa, which is the African chapter of One Day Sooner. One Day Sooner is an international public health nonprofit that focuses on research into policy and vaccine development for infectious diseases. One Day Africa, as I mentioned, the African chapter focuses a lot on trying to promote local medical and clinical research into infectious diseases within the endemic locations where this is happening. And by many strides, we try to promote local research capacity as well as including voices of local researchers into the global conversations on research. For the mentorship program, which we have been running now for a couple of years with Unza Medsa, this one has largely been tailored to try and create a platform that allows for medical students around the country to prepare adequately for the eventual joining of the practice. As we all know, I think there are a lot of differences between what you experience when you are in medical school and what you find when you actually set foot in some rural hospital in some part of the country. The challenges and the expectations weighed against what you have learned in the textbook or on YouTube or in the classes sometimes can create a shock, which is why we always value conversations and mentorship sessions like these where we can all learn from seasoned, experienced practitioners and healthcare providers, as well as researchers who have walked the path that you plan to walk. So we are always delighted to have experts like, Mr. Mwinde, Dr. Kasonde, and I think I saw Dr. Piri on the call as well to share these insights as well as provide you, I think, the needed context as you prepare yourselves to get into the practice. Specifically for today's session, we're going to be looking into life after medical school. What does that look like? Maybe these are questions that some of you are already thinking about as you see the horizon appearing, but I think this is why such kind of sessions and conversations are very, very important. I think, also affirm that as an organization, we are very, very interested, we are very, very passionate about supporting medical research, supporting clinical research around the African continent, not just in Zambia, which is why we've also been working towards launching the micro research grants for medical students. I think some of you may have already seen that somewhere in the circles. So let me not go too much into that, but otherwise, just to mention that we're very happy, delighted to continue to engage with Unza Medsa and other partners on these mentorship programs. And we continue to be very, very proud and appreciative of the experts with length of years of experience that they bring for us to be able to engage and interact fairly and hopefully prepare ourselves for a more seasoned, mature approach towards joining the practice on the continent and in Zambia in this case. So wishing you the very best in this session. Thank you so much. I think Arthur, you're mute.
Sorry, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's program. We're happy to have all of you here, and we can't wait to get into the meat of why we're here. So we have in our midst today Mr. Simwinde Kalaola. We have Dr. Kasonde Sondashi, and my co-presenter here is Mwaka Nachula. My name is Arthur Joliominga. I am the Secretary of Publicity in Zamedsa. Yeah. So to kick things off, we will start with you, Dr. Sondashi, if you're ready. Perhaps you can just signal to me that you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sondashi is a dedicated medical doctor with a strong foundation in clinical practice and a growing specialization in neonatology. She completed her secondary education in 2009 at Miguel High School in Gauteng, South Africa. I don't know if I've butchered the pronunciation of that place, but yeah.
It's
Um,
cool.
oh, it's Gauteng, is it not?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay.
is.
And she pursued her medical degree with Weifang Medical University in China, graduating in 2018. After earning her ECFMG uh, certified in 2019 through the USMLE Step 1 and 2 exams, she began her clinical career at Kitwe Teaching Hospital, Zambia, where she completed her internship in 2022. Following her internship, Dr. Sonda, she served as a senior resident medical officer across several departments, including pediatrics, internal medicine, emergency medicine, and outpatient services. From 2022 to 2024, her keen interest in newborn health led her to complete specialized training in neonatal in 2022. In January 2025, she commenced a postgraduate diploma in neonatology with Zambia College of Medicine and Surgery. Further advancing her expertise in newborn care, Dr. Sondashi is passionate about improving neonatal outcomes, and continues to combine hands-on clinical experience with academic achievements to make a meaningful impact in maternal and child health. This is a very fruitful CV, and we're looking forward to listening to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Sandashi.
Thank you so much, Arthur. Thank you for that. Indeed, it is a fruitful and full introduction. But thank you so much for that. Yes, I am passionate about neonatology, what I'm currently doing, and I think it's a field that is growing right now, gaining more recognition. And I'd like to see more people coming into the field to make it more evident and known around Zambia. Can I go into my presentation, my questions?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So just to talk a little bit about, we're talking about life after medical school, right? One of the things that I did want to speak about is when you are at a point when you're trying to decide what to pursue after medical school. For me, for my journey, it's something that took a while, in which I did take long in trying to decide what I want to do. I went down different paths, and it was a transition from being a senior resident medical officer to being a postgraduate student. And one thing that I would say is in that there was a lot of shift in responsibility. You know, as a student, when you go to the hospital and you're doing clinicals, it's different. When you become an intern, it's different. When you become a postgraduate student, it's different. And each stage has got a different level of responsibility. And I think one of the biggest transitions for me, even from medical school through internship through to when I became a PG student, is learning my different levels of responsibility in the hospital. And going on to specializing, you find that as a student, your responsibility is to you and your patients and your environment. As an intern, you have a little bit more where you actually have to, treat and diagnose people. But once you start to specialize in a specific field, you go into more administrative responsibility, where you'd want to see the department running well. You'd want to see different angles running well to make a good hospital in the specific place that you have put yourself. And so just the different levels of responsibility and how to make that choice on where you should be. And so what I wanted to touch on is, even as you are migrating through that, how do you know what decision to take after medical school? How do you know which department, if you have to specialize, which specialty you should go into? And I have a few points that I'd like to touch on. The first one is knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. Each and every one of us can testify that we have certain strengths in certain things and weaknesses in certain things. But being aware of that and knowing whether you are more of a skilled person, you're more of a practical person, you're more of a thinker, a cognitive person, is very important in how it's going to be for you during the journey of internship and even choosing a specialty. Because guaranteed, there are some specialties that are more leaned towards practical, i.e. surgery, orthopedics, urology, and there are some that are more leaned towards thinking and cognitive, your internal medicine, your pediatrics, so on and so forth. And so knowing yourself in that aspect really helps with, as we are getting to that point, making the decision and being able to walk in that. Secondly, personal area of interest, that is something that is open to all. You know what you're passionate about, what interests you. As you are currently in medical school, there are certain subjects that are just so intriguing as you sit in class, you know, like when the person is teaching, you're just you're interested to know more, and that's just your natural area of interest. Thirdly, marketability, and this is something that I was never taught. Of course, in medical school, maybe some of you have had the opportunity to be taught this, but when choosing where you want to be, what you want to specialize in, it's important to look at the marketability of that specific thing. Because, of course, in life, we know that things have to be marketable, and you need to have a return of what you are investing in. Number 4, the workload. How much work do you want to do? There are some places that are high stress. For example, the emergency room, you know, you're constantly having adrenaline runs back and forth. Other places are more not relaxed. I think everything is equally busy, but not as high stress as other environments. That's something that you have to choose. And then the other points, I'll just rush through them. Personal life, what decisions do you want to take? Where do you want to see your life going? How much time do you want to spend in and outside the hospital? What patient interactions do you want to have? Do you want to be directly face-to-face with the patients? Do you want to work behind the scenes, radiology, pathology? And then also just how you interact with different people in the field. So for me, who's in neonatology, as you said, I'm currently pursuing my postgraduate diploma in neonatology, and just a rundown of how my schedule would be in neonatology. It is an ICU, it's a neonatal ICU, so I work in an ICU, so it is quite intense as the nature of the specialty goes, and you'll find that on a daily basis, the overall department, you'd start in the morning with a ward round. As it is an ICU, patients have to be seen more frequently, so you have to do 3 ward rounds a day, paired and distributed equally among different people. But start with a word round, and it's very procedural heavy. So for me, something that I really did like, and this goes back to what I was saying, knowing yourself in medical school, and as you're being exposed to clinicals, whether you're more skill-based or thinking-based, and what your preference is. And I knew for me, I loved skills. I did not really like surgery and everything, but I loved skills. And so being able to pair something medical and surgical was really good for me. And so you find that you're doing lumbar punctures, you're cannulating, you're putting umbilical vein catheters, you are giving surfactant to preterm babies. And so you find that during the course of the day, you spend a lot of time doing procedures, and you're constantly reviewing and readmitting babies, because babies are born at different times of the day. There's no specific time that they'll come to your ward. And so that's what I love about the NICU. It's just dynamic and constantly moving. And that is basically a full day. Of course, we do have coverage, we do have a timetable, we do have core and everything in between, but as a basis, that is the full day of how things are going to work. We see a lot of cases, the bread and butter being prematurity, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, HIE. If you have rotated in a facility, you've done your clinicals already, and you've passed through pediatrics, you may have an idea of what I'm saying. If not, just bear with me. But we do see a lot of prematurity, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. We do see a lot of sepsis. And so, of course, these are things that already naturally drew me to that. One thing I will say about the NICU is that I appreciate that it is a very intense environment. It's ICU, intense, and babies are very dependent on you. I always share this when I talk about why I'm passionate about this specialty. Everyone has got a driving force. Like I spoke about, your area of interest is going to be your driving force to what you're going to choose to pursue after you finish school and after you start specializing in everything. But for me, my driving force is, I believe, to be an effective doctor, you know that people come to you in their moment of weakness, when they are not okay, they are not fine, and they are dependent on you to help them. It really is a moment of weakness, and you owe them that to help them feel better. And I always say, who is more dependent and vulnerable than a neonate? They've literally just been born. They're still transitioning, from intrauterine life to extrauterine life. They're in that transition. And even if a child is not admitted to the hospital, even at home, they are so dependent on their mothers. So even when they're sick, they're one of the most dependent patients that you have in a hospital. And I think for me, that was my driving factor. And like I said, each and every one of us get to a point where we know what our driving factor is, what is going to push us to, want to go the extra mile and do the most, because that is where our heart is, that is where our passion is. Just in wrapping up, I will talk a little bit about how I would like to see, talking about medical students and coming forward, how I would like to see the face of neonatology changed within Zambia. The first thing that I would like to say is neonatology is often overlooked, as it is under pediatrics, as a whole. You look at pediatrics and everything, but it's often sidelined. But one of the things that we are currently working towards, we have a lot of skill meetings, a lot of workshops, a lot of bando trainings. We have a Copperbelt network, a Lusaka network of neonatology, and we're constantly bringing ideas on what we can do and what to implement with upcoming students to better the field of neonatology. And I believe that is the same for different other specialties. But I think even what I'm going to say is something that can be applied not specifically to neonatology. I will be referencing it because that is where I am, but it can be applied to different specialties. And number one is more initiation seen within the medical students. I work with students who come in and you'd be doing something and they're able to advise you and say, why not do it in this way? Why not document in this way? Why not chart in this way? And they're so innovative in that they make things just run smoother. And when you look at neonatology, this is a very practical example. For prematurities, we use a system called CPAP. If you have rotated, you may be familiar with that. It will help prematures breathe. It's continuous positive airway pressure. It's kind of so we have machines for that. But in certain facilities where they were not able to have those machines, someone came up with a simple connection of oxygen tubings and a bottle, just to put in water in the bottle to maintain a certain pressure, so the neonate can breathe against that pressure and it opens the airway. And that was so innovative. Someone randomly came up with that. And so seeing a loophole, finding a problem, this is a rural area. We may not have access to machines, but what can I do to make this better? I think that's something that obviously would be amazing if it's implemented earlier on in medical school. Being able to do research, I know it's a requirement even as well in medical school, but falling in love with doing research and building on that as you get into internship, as you get into specializing, being able to help the medical sector progress in Zambia based off research and everything that we're going to do. And then lastly, I'm also going to talk about public awareness, being able to promote public awareness, teaching people, not only medical people, but even people in the environment, public health, teaching them to be able to recognize certain signs that they need to know, certain things that will make them come to the hospital in time. I can testify that in neonatology, sometimes people do not come to the hospital on time. You'll find that maybe they'll come a little bit too late. Some of them come, no issues, but a little bit too late. And, just being able to educate mothers, even antenatal and everything, like as a community, just raising public health to people around us as students, whether it's friends and interactions, whether it's on an online platform, whether it's in the community actively getting involved in public health, but just being able to raise public awareness, because at the end of the day, that helps with everything that we're going to do after that and patient outcome. All right, so I think that is the ending of my questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sondashi. Very inspiring, especially the CPAP story. So ladies and gentlemen, here is how you can get involved with the conversation. You will notice that you are unable to speak during this conversation, but if you are using a laptop or a computer of any sort, there's a toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and there you'll find an icon that says Q&A. So it is through that icon that you can type your questions and get involved in the conversation. If you're using a phone, the icon for Q&A should be in the top right corner. And so if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, feel free to type your questions in there and they will be addressed. Thank you very much. So at this point, I'll hand over to my co-moderator, Mwaka. You can take the floor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is as introduced. I'll be a co-moderator for today. We're about to move on to the public health sector. So our next speaker is Mr. Simunde Kalaula. I hope I'm audible. Yes. Mr. Simunde Kalaula is a qualified frontline clinician, public health specialist, a public health scientist, and an insurance professional, having trained at China College under the University of Zambia, and the Chartered Insurance Institute in the United Kingdom. Over 15 years in both the hospital and the department of the hospital, which is staffed with the holistic clients. He has been a member of staff since July 2019, approximately a month prior to our very first patient at Medical Kalala. Thank you. Mr. Simunde, you can go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope I don't have any internet. Okay, yeah, my internet connection is fine. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Mwaka, and thank you for the preamble from the previous speaker. Well elaborated, Dr. Sondashi. I think I should have been taking a few notes there. So for me, my interest has, let me not say has always been public health. Eventually, I gravitated towards public health, okay? My short journey started from Chainama College of Health Sciences, where I did my diploma in clinical medicine and surgery. Thereafter, I did 4 to 5 years of practice in Masaiti district. So I was privileged to be at a health center that was quite big at the time. It was the largest health center they had in the district at that time. At that time, they did not have a hospital, so that was regarded as a hospital. So it really exposed me to a lot of conditions, exposed me to a lot of administrative issues as well. So in the process, well, that hospital had 6 satellite sites. So you can imagine the disease burden, the exposure. Sorry, Mark, are you saying something? Okay. All right. So you can imagine the disease exposure and all that. So I think to me, the first thing that hit me, I think even whoever has done any study in public health will tell you the first thing that hits them is what's causing this disease burden? Why are we having so many clients? Why am I treating the same clients over and over? There were clients that I even knew by name, even from afar, and I would tell, okay, oh, so it's this one, they are back for such a thing. So I always was boggled, like mind boggled. Why are we seeing the same clients over and over and over and over? But my decision to go into public health wasn't immediate. So from there, I decided to come back to Lusaka. I was born and bred in Lusaka, but I went to the Copper Belt. I did much of my practice in various hospitals. I worked for Sinozam Hospital. I worked for a number of hospitals in Copper Belt, but mainly in Masaiti district. So when I joined an insurance company back in 2012, 2013, somewhere there, I still continued practicing. So something I can tell the students here is that, look, even if you end up getting a management job, like was the case, I mean, I was excited. I was a very young guy. they approached me. Of course, I did apply, but when I was picked as the best, this was the largest health insurance company in the country at that time. It had just come in from South Africa. So there was, we went through 3 vigorous interviews, and I was one of the 2 picked from over 20 candidates. Anyway, so flash forward. These are people that came and flashed money in our faces and told us, look, we can quadruple whatever the government is paying you. So of course you take a risk and you jump to the bandwagon and onto a new frontier. But one thing I can tell students, look, do not be afraid to try new things. Okay. When I left the practice, people always asked me, but after all this knowledge and all this experience you've gotten, only to accept an administrative job. Sometimes, like Dr. Sonda, she mentioned, it could be one of your strengths. So you do an introspection. What kind of a person am I? Am I hands-on? Am I more of a surgery person than I am more of a policy maker, etc.? Or at the end of the day, you all have one goal. It is for the patient. You want the patient to have the best healthcare. So there are those that are in charge of policy and those that are hands-on on the ground. So anyway, I did my introspection. I got my exposure. With time, I saw myself gravitating towards public health. And another thing I noticed is, look, where I was working, there were very few health workers. And I noticed at the same time, health insurance was in its infancy in this country, very much in its infancy. So now we can talk of NEMA. It's easy for someone to explain because there's NEMA. Everybody understands NEMA. But when we were starting out, when you tell them I'm a clinician working for an insurance company, the first reaction would be laughter. Why are you there? What are you doing there? But I'll tell you, it's very important and key, because if we go back to the SDGs and we go back even to the very definition of health, we do sing it as students. Well, back when I was a student, no, it is not just the absence of disease, but it is the absolute total physical, mental, financial well-being of a human being. You know, we sing it, we write it, we verbalize it, we put it on paper and forget. As soon as we get into practice, we end up being people looking for pathogenesis, okay, instead of health. We are no longer health workers. We are policemen looking for disease. Okay. That in itself started, I started becoming curious, and I think I was reading the right books, which led me towards my current goal and calling. But, I ended up reading about concepts that were new at the time. They were there back in the 40s, but shunned upon, but then started resurfacing. People like Antonovsky, who talked of salutogenesis, all these nice, big, fancy terms. But when I read through, he started making a lot more sense to me. That, look, we're really caring more for the disease than for the health of the human being. Salutogenesis, in short, just comes from the word salu. Salu is a Latin term meaning hello, hi, or I drink to your good health, like cheers, salu. Okay, so salutogenesis, the beginning of good health. I'm drinking to your good health. We tend to keep emphasizing on disease. Even if we look at, let's give a very simple example, the last budget for health. We'll talk about, so much goes to these antibiotics, so much goes to these ARVs, so much goes to buying these machines and all that. Rarely do you hear, can we provide clean water? Clean water will not be the mainstay of Ministry of Health. Maybe to come under Ministry of Works and whatever it is. It's like put on the side. But we're forgetting the definition of health itself. Anyway, so flash forward, and having been in this industry, sorry, Mr. Moderator, am I still within my time? Okay, thank you. So in this industry,
We'll give you 2 minutes to finish up.
Okay, thank you. So so mainly what I'm doing now, I'm in the health. I'm still in the health industry. I work for a medical institution. I work for Medland Hospital, but I'm not a frontline health worker anymore. I'm in administration. So I'm a policymaker, one of the policymakers in this institution, with more of a specialty. I specialize more in health insurance because health insurance, believe it or not, is also part of public health, in that it's actually the main key to public health. You're providing access to health. So, and the second thing that you're providing is sustainability. So you're creating a program that provides access for the patient to healthcare and also making that program sustainable. In a nutshell, a mini NEMA within this hospital. I hope I've tackled my first question adequately. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you still have more to say, Mr. Kalaula, or you're done?
Okay, yeah, for the moment, I think in line with what was asked at the beginning, I think this is it. Maybe just to add a comment to what Dr. Swandashi had mentioned. Maybe this question will come later, but with me, my comment would be I agree with her, usually because the first question is to specialize or not to specialize, to remain a general practitioner or not. At whatever level, I would say specialization is the way to go. You need to specialize because you're going to be the better person in that current field. But you need to do an introspection, like she mentioned. Do a SWOT analysis of yourself. Know your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities that come from outside, and the threats. I think we remember what SWOT analysis is. If you apply that to yourself, you know what kind of a person you are, and you specialize, but do not shun from getting as much experience as possible as a generalist, as a general doctor. Remember, there are even a lot more opportunities when you're a general practitioner than when you're a specialist. And somebody was asking, how do you know what is marketable? You can tell by what's happening, what's trending in your area, in your country. But at the same time, I would not agree with everyone that's saying, let us all specialize into one cadre of doctors. This is why we have so many obstetricians and probably only 2 hematologists and 5 radiologists who have all gone to the UK. We have nobody. We have to send our reports to South Africa. Then they come here in a digital form. Specialize into something that works for you by your strengths. Also specialize into something. As you are working, you're going to know what you gravitate to, something that you like. What is your passion? What is your interest? You've done so many rotations in various wards and various disciplines. Which one interested you the most? Did you like children vomiting on you, or did you enjoy working with people that are in the psychiatry ward, etc.? Choose the one that interested you the most, and I would advise you to go for it. Be the best that you can be the best doctor, be the best clinician, be the best at what you do, and money will follow you. Do not follow money, money should follow you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Kalala. And I'll now read out the questions. I'll now read out the questions that have been posted in the chat box. The first one reads, it's from Upe. It says, how do you identify marketable specializations? The next one is, I think these are for Dr. Sondashi because they came as Mr. Kalala speaking. And next one is, what setbacks did you have in your journey of med school? And the third one is, for someone who likes to think and solve puzzles but doesn't want to do internal medicine due to the increased workload, what other avenues in medicine can I explore? Please go ahead, Dr. Sandesh.
Okay. So for the first question, I think Mr. Kalaola has tackled it very well. But how do you recognize what specialties are marketable? The first thing that I will say is it is important to do your own personal research. So go out, research, whether it's online, within the hospitals, ask questions. We have a culture of, medical students not wanting to come out and ask questions to people that are actually actively practicing, but I believe find someone who you're okay with, who you're comfortable with, and ask all the questions you need to ask, because they are the people who are going to tell you and expose you to things that you do not know. Because sometimes you do not know what you do not know, and you need someone who has gone in that path to be able to shed a lot of light. So do research, ask questions. And number two, shadow the people that are in those different fields. So we do work, we do clinicals, we go to the hospital and everything, but find a specific doctor who you're going to become the shadow of. So go where they go, see what they see. Ask them, in your spare time, what do you do? Like, what other procedures do you do? How do you gain more in this specialty that you're in? So basically, it's just about networking for a simple answer, but being open and free enough to ask and build on that and get different people and interview different people. In a specialty, you can ask 5 people and compare answers and see what works for you. And then Mr. Kalawal also spoke about disease burden and the community. He spoke about specifically, radiology. We don't have a lot of radiologists because right now we are channeling out because people are specializing in other things that are portrayed in a specific way. So also look at your community and find out what the disease burden is. What are many people looking for? What are they seeking? If you're in a hospital and you're seeing that all these reports are being sent out of the country, start to think, and it goes back to the innovation I was talking about. Why do things operate in this way? Why is everything coming out from outside the country? Why? Always have the why, and from there you'll be able to find the loophole and see what the community need is or where the disease burden is, and then channel it in that way. And then for what setbacks did I have in medical school? My setbacks were a bit personal, so they may not apply across the platform. But because I did medical school in another country, I did 6 years, and the final year was clinical year. In my 5th year, or the last 2 years to clinical year, the 5th year was clinicals within that country, and the 6th year was clinicals in your home country. And so within my 5th year, when we started going to the hospital, I realized disease burden is different. The diseases that they face are completely different from what's faced in my country. And also just the exposure and interaction with patients is different. And so that was a setback and a struggle. But immediately I realized that it was going to set me back. I pivoted, and I had to find a way to every holiday bring myself home and go to the hospital that I could be exposed to, so that when I come back in my 6th year, it's better. So that may not apply to everyone, but maybe a take-home lesson would be, when you have a setback in medical school, don't sink and sit in it, but rather pivot and find a solution, because medical school is not smooth sailing. I was speaking to someone who failed an exam. She was 4th year, and she failed an exam, and she felt like it was the end of the world. And I'm like, the thing about medical school is, if you sit in your sorrow and your pain, you will not get far. You have to understand that medical school is tough. Yes, you're going to have setbacks, certain things that will come up, but you need to learn the lesson you need to learn in this setback and keep moving, keep pushing yourself forward. Another setback that I had, like I said, personal, but for me, my father died when I was in medical school, halfway through my medical school, and he was the breadwinner of the family. He was the one who was paying my school fees. And so, I couldn't sit in that. Of course, it was painful in that moment, but again, another take-home lesson is, don't deny the pain, don't brush it away. But even in the midst of that, pivot and find a solution, And then the last question, it was a bit long, but the take home was someone who likes to think and solve, but doesn't want the burden of internal medicine. This I relate to deeply because that was me. I am also naturally a thinker and a solver, and I like the puzzles, and I was in love with internal medicine. But the same parameters I mentioned when I spoke of workload, work-life balance, personal life, and certain goals I had, I knew that internal medicine wasn't for me because of the workload that's there. And so what I would recommend, I'm happy that you actually know yourself. You've been able to do that self-analysis and you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. But internal medicine is not the only specialty where you have to think and solve a puzzle. For me specifically in pediatrics and neonatology, constantly you have to figure out what is this sign, what is this symptom. The child looks like this, they're breathing like this, their saturation is reading this, and then you have to put everything together. There are different specialties that offer that. Of course, internal medicine being the most prominent one, but you can go into pediatrics, you can go into urology, which although it's surgical, but it's a mix of the two, very analytical, very critical thinking. Obs and gynae as well is a good mixture. Ophthalmology is a good mixture. Radiology, you look at images and you try and figure out paired with your signs and symptoms that you have. And so just don't limit yourself to only internal medicine can give you this. You can get the reward of solving a puzzle and putting things together from other specialties. But of course, that has to be paired with not just I don't want to misquote, but what Mr. Kalawala said, not just being a police and finding the problem, but actually, looking at health and treating your patient. But yes, I think those are how I would answer those three questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sondashi. Very eye-opening. Just a reminder to the audience, you can find the option to send your messages in. If you're using your phone, it's in the top right corner, it says Q&A, or if you're using a laptop, it's in the toolbar at the bottom. Right. Over to you, Mr. Kalawala. There are a few questions here for you. The first one reads, I have heard various people talking about public health. This is not me. This is from Wankumbu in the audience. He asks, or she asks, I have heard various people talk about public health job market I've heard various people talk about the public health job market, specifically how everyone flocks to doing a Master of Public Health because it seems like the easiest way out. But then there are actually not so many jobs out there, and it's hard to progress at a good enough rate. This is a very long sentence. Is it true, or is that true? And what are your thoughts on that? Yes. Then the rest are okay. There's one more question from Landilani Tembo. Good to see you here, sir. Question reads, Mr. Kalawala, given the current state of unemployment in Zambia, what pointers and skills would you advise new medical graduates and those soon to graduate, as it seems like diversifying beyond the hospital wards may be the sustainable way to go? So over to you, Mr. Kalawala. Any responses to this question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. These are a mouthful of questions, and thought-provoking indeed. I think you guys really, as you promised, this will be very thought-provoking. Okay, so the first question from Wankumbu. Yes, it does sound and look like everyone is doing an MPH because it's the easiest way out. One, it doesn't take so long. Two, it's usually affordable when it comes to fees. Let's not run away from what's at the core, okay? After you're done with school, most people, of course, would have had people paying for their fees, but thereafter you need to do it on your own. Do you have the money now to go and pay for specialization? Where do you want to specialize? Or are you already working? Is the institution you're working for allowing you to specialize in that direction? Those are all extrinsic factors, as we call it in public health. They are beyond you. But to some extent, you can apply some control to them. Now, to answer the question directly, whether it's the easiest way out, it does look like that because amongst the many specialities, like I mentioned, it's quicker, it's usually cheaper, and there are a lot more schools providing it. But I would say you need to be careful who's providing it as well, because there are so many schools mushrooming and providing it and channeling out all these papers. If you're not careful, you might get a paper that is not so marketable out there. So remain within the marketable schools. Secondly, I disagree that there are no jobs or there are very few jobs for MPH holders. I look at it from another point of view. Maybe I'm more of a glass half full kind of person than half empty. Look, public health gives you a broader perspective of things, okay? Like I was explaining earlier, you're looking at the very definition of health according to the WHO in its entirety. You're not just looking at pathogenesis, okay? Now, as you're studying that public health, as you're going along with your studies, you're going to find one or two things that will interest you within itself. I'm not saying end at public health, okay? It Public health just opens up your mind to think a little broader, okay? In short, public health is an added advantage to what you already are. For example, you're a clinician. What you're looking for is the cause of the disease, okay? Now, depending on your setup, depending on your exposure, depending on where you are, I know most people were doing MPH and ending up with NGOs, and as we've heard recently, Trump has closed the tap on NGOs. So now jobs, people are jumping out of those jobs. It's the sad reality of life. Anything can happen. I'll give another extreme example. How many pulmonologists do we have in this country? I don't know. At some point, we only had one, Dr. Mateo, okay, a close friend of mine. I'm sure when he was doing his specialty, most people were wondering, pulmonology, why? But what happened in 2020? COVID hit, okay? He was the most sought after medical staff. At some point, we had to share him with 5 different other countries, and the WHO wanted him, okay? So time and chance happens to everyone. This is why I still come back to say, specialize in something that you feel is in your interest, okay? Do you love that specialty you're going into? You can do public health, end up in a beautiful NGO and you're a director somewhere for the region, but you're miserable, okay? If what you're given, if what was in you, the gift given to you is a surgeon, be a surgeon. But when you specialize in surgery, again, I'll speak to this. I know a few surgeons who have ended up in offices. I disagree with that a lot. I strongly disagree. One of them was my lecturer, okay? Why are you in an office? You're a surgeon. Why are you in an office? So if you're going to specialize in that field, please practice. That's what I usually say. So to say there are no jobs, coming back to the question, sorry, I digressed a bit. Jobs are there, but it depends how you market yourself, how you also, what makes you different, okay? Out of 100 public health workers, why are you different? Why should they pick you? Why should they give you a job? That's what sets you apart. There are so many clinic officers out there. Why am I the claims manager for Midland Hospital? Okay, I'm not being boastful. No, I'm just trying to give this as an example. I realize there's need for somebody who understands health, and there's need for somebody who understands insurance. Unfortunately, there's no school for health insurance in the world. You have to study health separately, and you have to study insurance separately, and that's what I did. And looking at it like whether it's the easy way out or not, I actually went and did the course that most people feared in insurance, which is the Chartered Insurance Institute course of insurance. And I got those 3 papers and said, okay, look, if I mix the two, that makes me understand my job way better than expected. So coming back to you as doctors, if you're going to do public health afterwards, what will set you apart from the other doctor who has public health? What else are you? Yes, there's a doctor with public health, just like the next. Why are you different? What else are you going to add? That's what will make you marketable in this industry. I think that's what I can say. Then for Lindilani, I think I have answered that question as well, subconsciously. Yeah, I think talking about specializing, due to the current state of unemployment, I would suggest make yourself a very rare cadre, which will make you marketable. Make yourself a clinician who is being sought after by, let's say, even an insurance company or an NGO for something. Do not be ordinary. And if you have a chance to specialize. If you have a chance to study something else, do so. If you have a chance to learn one of these CPD courses that come up, the Ministry of Health is actively running some. I hope we all know about them under ECHO, ECHO. It's a virtual thing. Every lunchtime, is it on Thursday? You join those courses. They even give certifications for those. You never know. And through networking, like Dr. Sondashi mentioned, join these clubs, okay? Join Rotary Club, join Lions Club. Those are things that don't require money. They just require your presence. As you are networking, you will never know. You'll find somebody building a hospital who will say, I actually need a doctor, and one specialized in public health. And there you are.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kalaula. That's very in-depth. So we have a few more questions here in the chat. And so I will ask our panelists to be as brief as possible so that we can stick to time. Yes. So, Dr. Sondashi, there is a question here that asks, I would like to ask about work-life balance and how one can attain and still pursue their career. I don't know exactly what they mean. One can attain what? But yes, there is that. Also, somebody is asking, is it possible to do more than one specialty? And the last one for you, Dr. Sondashi, is what is the roadmap for becoming a specialist? I mean, once I complete this year, next comes internship. But I don't think I know what happens afterwards, especially because I think I know what I want to specialize in. It's a surgical subspecialty. What comes after internship? Over to you, doctor.
Okay, thank you so much for those questions. So just to be brief, the first one, talking about a work-life balance is something that's very important. I often say one of the things you have to make sure you have is a work-life balance in medicine. Otherwise, you can easily burn out and be very depressed in what you do. And so the best way to attain it, what I would say currently, even where you are, do not give up on hobbies or little things that you enjoy. Because when in medical school, even before medical school, you had certain things that you liked doing, whether it's cooking, drawing, we all have different hobbies. So keep those even as you're going into medicine and have them as an outlet so that when you're outside of the hospital, you do have something going on or happening in your life. Like your whole life is not just completely hospital. So having personal things that actually bring you fulfillment and happiness and joy are very, very important and very crucial. We are humans. Yes, we are medical personnel. Yes, we are health practitioners, but we are humans. And it's important to remember that we need all those little components of life to avoid going into depression and, other things that can be associated with so. And then the next question, I think I'll answer them together. Can you do more than one specialty and the roadmap? You can do more than one specialty. Is it legal? Yes. Is it advised? No. Because you wouldn't want to stretch yourself too thin, even practically speaking. Maybe you can have like sister specialties, but you wouldn't want to spread yourself too thin and go in different angles, As a human, you're better off just knowing one thing and knowing it deeply. And the way Mr. Kalaola emphasized, to be marketable, you need to know one thing deeply. But you find that if you've dipped in so many different paddles, you become very shallow. And then for the roadmap, after medical school, you finish your medical school and then you start your internship. Internship is 1.5 years or 2 years, depending on where you studied. As the audience is mainly UNZA. For you guys, it's 1.5 years, 18 months. And then after that, you start to specialize. So there are 2 routes in which you can specialize. The first one being going via MED, Masters of Medicine, or STP under ZACOMS. The procedure is constantly changing. Right now, there are different things that are required, but previously for you to go under MED, you have to had done a rural rotation of 2 years. So that means internship for 2 years and for 1.5 years, and then rural rotation for 2 years. So that is going to any rural aspect within Zambia, any rural town within Zambia, and just working there as an SRMO for 2 years, and then after that going to specialize. Although right now there are some people who can go from internship right into MED. STP doesn't necessarily require the 2 years rural. It's more fluid, if I can say, than MED. But then you're going to STP, of which I hope we are familiar with the difference between MED and STP. But both of them are specialties, and then you graduate STP with the specialist and MED with the consultant, and then thereafter you can sub-specialize. But that's just a quick overview of the roadmap.
Perhaps before you leave, Dr. Sondashi, there's one question that I would like for you to address. So, an anonymous attendee asks, do you have any advice with regards to what can be done during the struggles of unemployment post-medical school, as well as how to mentally cope with the long transition between the long transition that the majority of doctors are facing now? I believe that this question comes from the transition that has existed in medicine, where previously you would have buses waiting for you, but now it's not the same. In a minute, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, that is it's painful to actually watch that as someone who's in medicine. And I do have a lot of people who I know personally who are currently going through that. For me, myself, my waiting period was now it doesn't even seem long. At that time, it was long, but it was about 9 months. And now I know of people who are waiting for even 1-2 years, just for employment. And what I will say on that is it's kind of a give and take. I don't know if this is even okay. I'll give my personal advice. What I do tell people is, number one, if you're able to source temporary employment outside of medicine, do that. So if you're able to start a business, have a source of income. Because many people sit at home and be depressed, and I do not belittle the impact of unemployment, because like I said, it may not seem like much, but mine was 9 months. So I understand the burden that it has mentally, but rather than wallowing in that, try and source, so at least you're doing something. So find somewhere to work as you are waiting in that period. Number two, if you can financially, although many people frown upon it, try and volunteer. Because the thing with volunteering within the hospitals, the teaching hospitals, is once you volunteer, you complete that, you get your degree, you get your license, your permanent license from HPCZ, and you can channel out. And that is becoming marketable. So the moment you have your permanent license from HPCZ, you are not married to teaching and government facilities. So you can go into private, you can go into insurance, you can go to all these other facilities. Doors open once you have your permanent license. But the only way to get that is by doing internship in a teaching hospital. And many people wait on that. But if you are able to, especially financially, it's also a financial burden, but if you are able to, then volunteer. Even if you have to volunteer, unfortunately, I do not say this, I say this with a lot of sorrow, but even if you have to volunteer for that amount of time, volunteer so that you get that paper and it makes you marketable to open other doors. But of course, as someone who's on the other side, that's the best advice I can give, but also try and meet with different people who are in the same situation and just channel ideas, because different people are coping differently. And I think it's a very huge burden. I have seen the impact it has. But yeah, I think that those are the best answers I could give.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Sondashi. There are, I think, a few more questions. Yeah, so please wrap them up. The first one reads, what do you prioritize personally when choosing a specialty? Was it the marketability of the specialty, your passion, or how much time and flexibility you thought it would give you? The next one reads from an anonymous attendee, It says, between strength and passion, which of the two do you think should one consider when choosing a specialty? The next one is, what were your struggles reintegrating into the Zambian healthcare system after studying abroad? Would you advise studying abroad? Then the final one reads, Doc, if someone loves counseling and is interested in understanding human behavior in relation to human anatomy, is it safe to conclude that one loves psychology as a specialty, or there is more to it? Also, is psychiatry marketable? Yes, I think this is pretty much it. So please wrap them up because we have reached the 8 p.m. mark and we're supposed to be closing right about now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I think I'll do the first two together. For me, what led me to choose what I chose was number one, time, and number two, passion. I knew that, like I said, internal medicine, workload, time-wise, work-life balance wasn't so fruitful. And so that's why I had to step away from that. And what pulled me to what I stepped to, which is neonatology, was because of the passion. And so okay. And so to the question of whether strength and passion which one is better, I'd say both. If you're able to find both in one thing, then go for that. But if you have to choose, which I do not recommend, but if you have to choose, go for passion. Because passion is what's going to fuel you and drive you. You can be good at something, but you do not like it. And as a medical practitioner, you have to love what you do. You have to love the people you serve. You have to love your clientele, because that's what's going to make you a good doctor. So I'll definitely say passion is better. The next question, struggles of reintegrating into the Zambian system. I already did mention this. For me, having been in a country that has completely different medical field as Zambia, so even the conditions are different, the diseases are different. So I had to humble myself when I came back and learn things that are prominent here. For example, with something as simple as the HIV pandemic, they do have HIV everywhere, but where it's one of the most integral things of the Zambian healthcare system, I had to humble myself and really get into the nitty-gritty details. And then on another thing, of course, being in a country that's highly advanced in technology, being exposed to so many things, so many machines, and coming back, I also had to reframe my mindset and say, I cannot rely on this, but I have to be able to do things in a different aspect because I'm not, certain machines or certain procedures are not readily available. I hope that has answered the question well. And then the last question for psychiatry being marketable. Yes, I do think if that is your interest, I do think you are more inclined to say psychiatry, psychology. I say psychiatry. And is it marketable? It is a growing field. Right now, I'm sure we have all seen the move of the importance of mental health, which was something that wasn't so popular back in the day. But right now, people are prioritizing that. Medical personnel are prioritizing that, even the community is. And so being able to, like I said, see where the gap is. People want good mental health. People are now pushing for mental health to be, built on. But now who's going to help us do that? And that is where the need is. That is where you enter. So yes, it can be very marketable, just according to how you maneuver through the need that's already there. Okay, I hope that has answered the questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sondashi. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our session today. First and foremost, allow me to stress that this is not the only session that we are going to have, but rather we have another physical session that is planned, and as Nzameta in conjunction with One Day Africa, more details will be shared to all of us on that. Furthermore, we would like to extend our sincerest apologies for Dr. Kunda's absence. It is unfortunate that network was not very friendly on her side today. Yes. We will also share the recording to this session. And so if there is something that you might have missed and you want to listen to it again, perhaps your roommate was unable to attend and you want to share what you learned with them, we will share the recording to this session with everyone so that you can follow up on a few things. Yes. With that said, allow me to hand over back to Mr. Zach for the closing remarks, and then we can dismiss.
Sorry, thank you once again for what has been, I think, a very upbuilding conversation, and that based also on the number of questions that came up in the Q&A. I think it's very clear that there was a lot of interest, and a lot of people obviously are very concerned about issues around employment, which I think is very natural, especially as you're preparing to get into employment. So there are very real questions. And I think the feedback and the responses that we've gotten from our panelists for today have been very, very, I think, informative, and most importantly, informed by experience. And I think this is what the framework of mentorship programs should look like. Also, as it has been mentioned here, this is not the only program that One Day Africa and Unza are working on. We have other projects that we are working on that we're trying to drive, and I think more information is going to be following on that. We also have in-person sessions that we are planning, I think, in the next month or two around the theme. I think we'll also be sharing more information on this. But just to maybe conclude for the audience, if you have any other burning questions or thoughts, as well as recommendations in terms of what you would like to see more on these kinds of mentorship discussions, please reach out to us, reach out to your Unza executive. But if you have questions specifically on the topic for today, please reach out also to the organizing team. It could be Unza, it could be us, and we shall be able to connect you with our panelists. I'm sure they'll be happy to respond to you as those questions become available. And remember, the basis and the objective of setting up these kinds of conversation is to create a platform that allows for engagement and exchange of ideas that fosters preparedness for the practice. Otherwise, thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much for our audience. Thank you so much, Arthur and Mwaka, for moderating this session very well and managing the so many questions. I couldn't keep up myself. And very, very happy as we remain committed to continuing to working together on this very, very important mentorship program. Thank you and have a great evening.